do the state of the SicEm next. And glad we could fit it in today. Colt, I tell you what, a lot's been going on across baseball in college baseball, I should say. And we do want to give a score update for folks at home. Right now, it is Norfolk State and East Carolina tied at 2-2. Liberty's up on Duke 11-1. The score in that one, 11-1 Liberty on Duke. South Florida up on number 14 Florida 3-1 in the fifth. Army down 5-2 to Texas Tech, and Central Michigan Notre Dame just squared off. Colt, who's your dark horse? Who do you like now that Baylor's out of the tournament?
Man, to be frank, I haven't even really thought about it. I really like the Big 12's chances. They have some paths there that I really like to get to the World Series. And truthfully, you talk about the Big 12 and you talk about, being competitive, et cetera. Basketball just won a national championship. If baseball could figure out how to win a national championship, women's basketball has obviously been up there with Baylor being so good in the past. Like, football is kind of the last piece of the puzzle if baseball pulls it off. And I think it's just great for the conference. So, it might be against popular opinion or a popular thought for Baylor fans, but a Big 12 team winning it would be awesome. It's hard to pick between Tech or TCU or Texas of which one. So I'll just kind of leave it to the field of those three.
Tell you what, that's an interesting point we made on the show a couple times is, will Baylor football win a national championship in the next 40 or so years? I think an equal question is, when's the next time a Big 12 team will win a national championship in football? Is the Big 12 primed to be the next conference? Maybe OU. The OU looks really good this offseason.
Yeah, Oklahoma has to be the favorite at this point. There's so much stability, and everybody always wants to talk about Texas, but I think if you look at LSU with Ed O, that's kind of the only team with a short-term coach that's won a national championship. You obviously Alabama, Clemson have established cultures there, but Oklahoma, if it's going to be anyone, it's going to have to be Oklahoma for the short term, in my opinion, to win a championship. And I think they've kind of figured something out with their offensive and defensive balance. Obviously, it's always going to trend towards offense. But if you can run the football and play good defense at will, or I should say run the football at will and then play good defense, you have a great chance to win football games. And they've really restructured their DNA. So I'm curious to see how they stack up in a year where a lot of people expect them to be pretty good and to compete. Really, not just to make the playoff, but to compete for a national championship.
Yeah, it's definitely, as I'm looking across the league, Kennedy Brooks for Oklahoma is going to be a bell cow for them. Spencer Rattler obviously coming back. If they can run the football with not just Brooks but also Rattler. I do want to know, so I'm looking at like a couple of these guys. Kennedy Brooks, I mentioned Charlie Kolar at Iowa State's a big name. Marvin Mims, Bijan Robinson. That's without mentioning Breece Hall and Brock Purdy. I do have the Big 12 ballot that I'm filling out in the next couple of days for Big 12 preseason offensive and defensive players of the year. I do want to pick your brain on that. Like, who do you like to be the Big 12 MVP going into next season? There are a few different good options.
Yeah, I think Spencer Rattler makes the most sense just because quarterbacks win awards in college. There's not a lot of diversity, and that's unfortunate because I think there's a lot of opportunities in these leagues to vote defensive players, but offense is so prevalent that you go, it's kind of like winning, the MVP or the Heisman, I should say. It's just, the best quarterback on the best team typically. Obviously the trend broke this last year when Alabama has the best quarterback and the best receiver in the country, and they kind of split votes and the receiver wins it. But I think in the Big 12, you got to go with Spencer Rattler as being the main target. But Brock Purdy is interesting. If Iowa State can win the league, I don't know how you go against the quarterback on the best team. I don't think they're going to win the league. I think that Iowa State is just one of those teams that kind of caps out 9-10 wins because of overall talent. And you look at the way Baylor competes with them every single year, and Baylor doesn't by any means have terrible talent. That's not the case at all, but they're very similar talents. And until you can kind of get over that hump of having more talent, I don't know if Iowa State's going to be able to win those games to push Brock Purdy towards the top of the league and, kind of winning the most outstanding player. In other words, I think it's going to go to someone who wins the league, and Spencer Rattler makes a lot of sense. But I think that's just an easy pick at this point.
No Breece Hall. Come on, man. I love Breece Hall. Yeah,
he's good, but I would have to look back to the previous selections. When was the last time a running back won that award for the Big 12? And you could probably tell me. I don't know. It's just a quarterback league. Like, you look at the best teams in the league, it's usually the top two quarterbacks or the top two teams, and that's how it's been. I mean, even in 2019, that you can make a strong case that Charlie Brewer was the number 2 quarterback in the league that year. And I think that, a running back winning that award is a lot like winning the Heisman. It's trickle-down effect in so many ways. And, best quarterbacks go number one in the draft. They win the Heisman. They get named MVPs of leagues. And, there's a reason they're their most important player on the teams.
Yeah. It is a quarterback world. Colt, I will say I would be surprised if there's not a couple of Baylor players on the all-defensive preseason team. I'm not sure how the media will really weigh this, but obviously Apu Ika is somebody that I'll have near that list. I love Terrell Bernard and Jalen Petrie's chances, maybe Raleigh Tejada as well. Yeah. Offensively, though, is there an offensive player for Baylor that is Big 12, all Big 12 worthy right now?
Treston Ebner has a chance just because you look at his accolades as a returner. People automatically associate that with the overall ability. So I look at a guy like Treston Ebner that'll have an opportunity. His name's been there for so long, people will tend to say, to lean towards those guys. They've been in the league forever. This will be his 5th year of actually playing football with that additional year of eligibility. So people will trend towards that. Offensive line, I think it's Connor Galvin or bust there. Tight end, I think Ben Sims would have a chance of earning some accolades, first or second team, but the tight ends are truthfully in the league are pretty deep. You look at anybody that Oklahoma runs out there right now, obviously Charlie Kolar at Iowa State, and they seem to have 2 or 3 guys always. So in a lot of years, you trend to a guy that might catch 30 balls for 300 yards and a few touchdowns as a first team selection in the Big 12 at tight end, but that's not the case right now. Running back, like I mentioned Treston. Abram Smith's not going to get anything preseason just because he's obviously he hasn't been playing there. Squirrel Williams could maybe surprise some people, but to actually earn first-team honor is going to be really difficult. Receiver-wise, no one had enough production, and that time will tell if they have enough production this year. But Taquan Thornton obviously has the potential. R.J. Sneed will get some recognition. I just don't think he'll be for first team unless he just absolutely blows up, especially in the preseason.
Out of Colt, moving out of football and back into, I want to get some quick hitters before we talk state of the SicEm365, some quick hitters here. Andy Thomas, All-American, Baylor baseball being snubbed from the tournament. What was your assessment of Baylor being the first team out?
Yeah, that was salt in the wound. That was Baylor didn't handle their business, obviously, to get into the tournament, and very similar to softball, right? That the way that those seasons ended, and one team made it, then the softball team goes 0-2, and then baseball doesn't even make it in. The one thing that I really thought with baseball was like, you get them in, they're going to have a chance to win a regional because their number 1, number 2 pitchers can throw strikes. They're going to get guys out. They can swing the bat so well. So I thought if they make it in, they have the chance of at least competing for that regional championship and potentially moving on, depending on the region they were in. I think they were talented enough to do that, especially once they got healthy. But that's just the unfortunate circumstances of another year that was impacted by COVID for this team, with Tyler Thomas missing starts. And then at the end, man, you look at a team that throughout the season were number 1, number 2 in batting average throughout on the entire season, not just league play. They're number 1 batting average, but they didn't hit a lot of, their slugging percentage wasn't great. They didn't hit a lot of home runs. And you saw that in the Kansas State series, or the Kansas State game was like Baylor can just chip and chip and chip, but you get teams like Oklahoma State, you get teams like Kansas State that can hit bombs. That's the way these teams are built in the Big 12 right now. It's like if you are just going to chip away, it's kind of like running the football on the football field. You're eventually going to have to do something other than get singles. And they had a couple guys, obviously, Andy being one of them that could put in the gap and hit a home run. But the consistency of doing that was just not there. And even though I felt like, truthfully, that they hit a lot more home runs than normal, they compared to the rest of the league, they just weren't doing it. So I think this team had their opportunities to get into the tournament and to solidify. And I do at the same time think it was unfortunate that they weren't able to get in. And I don't want to use the word snubbed, but I think this team had a lot of potential had they make it into the postseason.
I would agree that I think snubbed is probably the wrong word if North Carolina and Michigan don't make it in. If Florida State doesn't make it in. The only reason I think I do use the word snubbed is because the teams that made it in over Baylor are just puzzling resumes. Over to women's basketball, though, and Jamie Asbury coming to town for Nikki Collin. Yeah. How big of a pickup is that, showing that Collin is not just going to recruit the transfer portal, but bring in huge names? Because Jamie Asbury is somebody that we had that scored 16 a game against Baylor this past season for Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I mean, we got to remember that this women's basketball program it's kind of like when, Coach K leaves Duke or Coach Williams leaves North Carolina. This team they're still going to recruit. They're still going to be able to naturally bring in players. So, yeah, Coach Mulkey's gone, but the potential there to recruit is still based on the name of Baylor. So you had this particular situation. It was a dream school for a player dating back to when they were in high school. Their freshman year. So that nostalgia is still there for a lot of players who didn't get that opportunity. So the transfer portal can be big. And it also just really plays to what type of style this Lady Bears basketball team is going to move towards. So you look at the shooting percentage wise, like she's going to fill it up from the outside. She might not be the most efficient inside the paint or inside the arc, but she's made to do one thing, that's score from the perimeter. And obviously, she's a little bit smaller than what Kim Mulkey would have ever recruited. I don't know I can't remember how tall Moon Hurston was, but you're talking 5'5".
About the same size, about the same height, I think.
Yeah, so I think it's similar. I don't know why she wasn't recruited out of high school heavily. I know she was from Tulsa, and she ended up signing with Oklahoma State. But obviously she's a good player. I just think it truly goes back to style of play and the way that she'll fit in with what this new system's going to be at Baylor for the women's basketball program. And it's overall, though, I think it just goes back to you have a team that's a program that's going to recruit itself until it is no longer winning. And so that's going to be the question, is if this team continues to win, the recruiting will continue to come. And that's good and bad for a new coach, because you want to build your own type of program. But you have some built-in benefits whenever you're coming to a program like Baylor that's been so successful for so long.
Juicy Landrum's a little bit bigger than Jamie Asbury, but it reminded me, just kind of looking at the numbers, like, I bet Juicy Landrum's stats are pretty comparable. But I looked earlier today, and I've got some of these written down here, where three-pointers, obviously we heard Jamie made, I think it was 72 three-pointers this past season. The most Landrum ever made was 63, and it felt like she really lit it up in that shortened COVID year. She had 55, and she shot 42%. This is the best she ever shot. That was her senior season. Jamie Asbury has 2 years left of eligibility, so big pickup for Nikki Collin, again showing she will recruit the transfer portal. Some other big news from the site. SicEm365 following all of Baylor athletics really closely and recruiting closely as well. Zach Pyron being named an Elite 11 finalist in the top 20 gets to attend that camp. That just seems like every quarterback at Baylor now, that's just the standard.
Yeah, and I think that's a testament to evaluations, right? That they can look at a player and say, not only do we see this on film, but we really see this. And now when you recruit someone like Drones, where you really don't get to see him, you had a staff that didn't really get to see him work, that changes things. Same with Zach in this situation. They didn't get to see him in person before they offered him, but there was something they really liked about him that stood out on film. There was a lot of individual videos traded with Zach and the staff, where he's showing them working out that we have never got to see, for instance. And so I think that you have a staff that felt really comfortable watching those things and offering him, and then it's coming to fruition. But I think that it's been over multiple staffs, right? Like it was over Matt Rule's staff, obviously dating back to Art Briles, but over Matt Rule's staff, and then you had Larry Fedora, and now you have Sean Bell and this offensive staff doing it. And Sean, as much as he had input on the offense, he wasn't the guy going out and getting quarterbacks. And Gary had it with under Matt Rule. Blake Shapen didn't have that honor, but he was full of baseball at the same time during summer workouts, et cetera. So he wasn't out chasing these type of accolades. But you look at Zach, I just think that he checked a lot of boxes for this staff from a competitiveness standpoint, from a physical build standpoint, from an arm talent standpoint. Whereas you watch the film, you say, well, I can see it a little bit, but how do I trust what this film is saying? Well, they saw a lot more than any of us ever did. And now you have a guy like Zach going out and competing in big events and something that he wouldn't have had the opportunity to do last year, right? And he's catching the attention of a lot of people. To get an Elite 11 finals invite is massive for him, and it's good for Baylor's class. He's not going anywhere, right? So now he has this to hang on to, and now he's not going to go get a lot of offers because he's committed to Baylor. He's not going to give up that commitment to be recruited, right? So he's not going to get a lot more offers. He's not going to get those things to prop himself up on. But when you have a quarterback that's going to the Elite 11 finals, there's some weight to throw around there on the recruiting trail because that's going to be the leader of the team. Just like we talked about earlier, if you don't have a quarterback, it's going to be tough to do a lot of different things in this league or in college football in general. Same goes for recruiting class. If you have a leader at quarterback like Zach, you're going to be able to do some more damage on the recruiting trail as long as the success on the field is there as well.
Yeah. Well, Colt, moving from there to basketball, too, you got a documentary that's being filmed, a large portion of it next week. I know Ashley filled us in a little bit yesterday, but take us through kind of the ins and outs of the documentary and what all is going to be happening in the next 7 days.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. We had the entire crew is put together. There's a schedule of filming to start next week in Houston on Monday, and we don't have a lot of hands on that scheduling. Like, we laid that up to the pros, right? So Chris Scott and his crew are assembling that. They've been in contact with all the characters. I mean, I think there's like a list of 16 or 17 of people who really surprised me, honestly, that we were able to get to be on this thing. And it starts with former players and very recent former players, and hopefully we'll be able to disclose that more pretty soon. And obviously I think that kind of gives you a hint of who it could be or who it could potentially be. We've worked really close with Baylor in securing Coach Drew and even potentially Scott Drew's father to be on this. And they're going to do a lot of traveling around and not just in Houston and then in Waco next week, but there's going to be some chances to film out towards Las Vegas with some people and then back up towards or back in Arizona, obviously with Coach Homer Drew, and a lot of connections to Coach Drew's past. So we're excited to get this going. We hope that they will have the type of a trailer or a sizzle reel in July, and then the final product we hope will be done by September. We don't want this to drag into basketball season and it kind of loses some of its luster, right? That there's going to be a new national champion. We don't want to have that part of it fade. But this story also exceeds just that. Like, it's not just about 1 year. There's a lot that went into the story, and we're excited to be able to tell this because it's kind of a storybook in so many ways. Now, could you imagine this happened like the University of Texas or wherever it might have been, Alabama, Duke, one of those major programs where they had this entire story that preceded winning a national championship? It would be hot off the press really quick. And I think it was going to be done if we didn't do it for Baylor. But I think that there's an opportunity for there's a lot of Baylor people involved with this project, from the director to SicEm365 to the DP of the thing. And I'm excited to see the final product. And now we're letting the pros do their job.
I love it, Colt. I'm scheduled for 2:00, right? Next Wednesday. That's my.
Yeah, I think you're picking up some food for us or something like that.
Oh, see, I thought it was an interview slot, but okay, that makes more. I was confused. I'm looking though. You got documentary, and a lot of folks there's kind of some buzz around where they'll be able to find it. I know Class Action Park with Chris Charles Scott has been, it can be popularly seen through HBO. When it comes to selling this documentary and getting this documentary out on different streaming sites and services, obviously you guys don't want it to go through some random fourth party where it's just like, where do we find this thing? Right. So kind of what are the steps and goals in getting this out to the public?
Yeah, I mean, number one option would be for someone like Netflix to pick it up and put it on their streaming. Obviously, ultimate would be ESPN picking it up for 30 for 30, that type of feature film. That's going to be seen by everyone. But we're at this point in the process, we don't know. I think there's some possibilities for it to be on that type of level. I think that there's people involved that wouldn't be involved unless they thought that it could be that big, and that excites us. But when this originally started, it was about hey, let's just do it. Let's put it and make it a SicEm365 deal. And then we had people approach us that said, we know you're doing this. Let's work together. And so because of those reasons, we're cautiously optimistic that it'll be easy to access. You know, if you watch a Netflix or you're on Amazon Prime or something like that, it'll be easy to get it. And then we're going to also offer a lot of opportunities to see it. We don't know all of the details yet, but if you want to go watch it at Hippodrome in Waco, like we plan on doing something there. We're still working through those details, and but then also in Austin and Houston and Dallas as well to have it in some theaters there. Now there's a lot to be done with that that will come in the next few months, and we're excited to see where it goes. And so you know, we hope Netflix gets it, but we're going to be able to distribute it regardless of who picks it up.
So I may not be invited to the interviewing party, but the actual showing, when we do the big Hippodrome and bring out all the suits and SicEm365, can I at least maybe just hold your jockstrap or drive the limo? Yeah,
just bring some cigars and we'll let you in.
Perfect. I will. Swisher Sweets, free plug. Colt, you know, Monday's a big day for us around here. It's the 100th episode, 100th show of Up Tempo. How neat is that?
It's crazy, man. You know, it was I don't want to say we did it on the spur of the moment, but I think there was some thought that went into this that let's see what happens. And obviously Armstrong was a part of that, being able to get him on and to run that and really help us guide it. And 15 months ago, we didn't know that one radio show was going to exist. Now we have two. And that's always the goal, is to grow and expand, and being on this type of platform to bring Baylor fans information is always exciting. And that's our ultimate goal. And it's not to make money. It's not to do this or that, which those things are benefits of it. But to do what we love, all of us to do what we love, is a lot of fun. And adding this show is part of that, part of that vision. And obviously, as everyone knows, we're going to do our best to expand those things and to do more and more in our coverage of Baylor sports, and eventually, you know, potentially expand it to do a lot more than just that. But the roots of it will always be covering Baylor, and that's a big reason that we started the second show.
Well, 100 episodes in, hopefully we've earned 100 more.
Hey, I hope y'all have too. We'll see how show number 100 goes, and see what happens.
Yeah, we'll bring a cake and some cigars. We'll do that on Monday's show. Colt, anything else big going on with SicEm365? I know we checked off documentary and 100th show and a lot going on around Baylor athletics, but summer hits and it's not going to slow down for you guys. But what can folks expect with SicEm365?
Yeah, I mean, summer's slow, but at the same time, it's pretty fast. A lot of recruiting about to happen right now. Grayson does a great job with that, as you guys know. We have camps starting this weekend, official visits that Baylor's never really done in the summer. There's going to be a ton of those in the summer to cover, a ton of interviews from the studio, ton of coverage on that. Then, truthfully, you get into Big 12 Media Days right after that. Middle of July, you go from July into the end of July, starting fall camp, you know, in August. And man, once fall camp starts rolling, it's a race to the finish line in December, because there's so much to do, so much coverage. And as we grow and expand our team, I'm really excited to see the amount of coverage and content that we'll be able to put out over the last 6 months, 5 to 6 months of the year.
Well, Colt, before we get you out of here, obviously our Bear Games question of the day. I'm not forgetting anything, am I? I mean, we've checked most of the boxes.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Oh, beautiful. Bear Games question of the day. For you, family vacation as a kid, where was it? Was there one place that you guys just always went?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're leaving for Destin, Florida. My family, my wife and my two kids, we're going next week. Leave on Saturday, and we'll be there for a week. That's a trip that I've taken since I was like 5. Same condos, same location. Actually, this year will be the first year that we haven't stayed in the same condos since 27 years ago. So wow. Pretty crazy, and we're excited to do it again, and kind of a family tradition.
Well, I've got it on my calendar. I'll make sure to call you and text you double time when you're in.
That's fine. No, I fully expect that to happen. I fully expect it to happen.
I will. When you're in Destin, I'll make sure to do it. I'll be in Los Angeles then too. So hey, we'll both be. Maybe I'll be off the docket. We can just take a week off.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna actually, I will be your wake up call while you're in Los Angeles. I'm on the opposite coast, or actually not the Gulf Coast, but we'll be a few hours ahead of you, so I'll be your wake up call.
Boom, thank you. At least you're looking out for me. I'm glad you're doing that at least. Hey Colt, thanks so much for coming on today. And 100 episodes in, thanks for giving a couple of random, I say college guys. I'm the only one that's in college, but a couple of college age guys some plug with this show, and then 100 in. Absolutely. I hope we've made you proud.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the graphics.
Yeah, we'll get Jack in grinding on something. But hey, thanks again, Colt, for joining us. State of the SicEm, always a pleasure.
Absolutely, guys. Y'all have a good one.
Yep. Again, Colt Barber of SicEm365, the big man, the boss man, talking State of the SicEm and all that's going on across Baylor, not just Baylor, but also at SicEm365.com. When we come back from this break, we've got the old hard count with J.D. PicKell. Got a couple episodes of the hard count where J.D. breaks down the playoff expansion. J.D. breaks